Hello everyone, my name is Jingyuan. I will present our work iPose, Interactive Human Pose Reconstruction from Video. This project is motivated by reconstructing 3D human poses from monocular videos. It has many useful applications, such as analyzing in the wild sport poses. Nowadays, there are many computer vision-based approaches for automatic reconstruction, but they often fail in challenging cases, such as when the pose is complex and with motion blurs. But these challenges can be easily addressed by human perception. For example, we humans can easily identify that this athlete's right hand should be here. We thus propose to introduce human intervention into the pose reconstruction process. On the other hand, artists in animation can do manual reconstructions in 3D software, but it can be time-consuming and requires extensive training to master the skill, so it's not suitable for novice target users like sport analysts. There are also approaches aimed at simplifying the manual reconstruction process. They often adopt prior knowledge of human movements to produce physically plausible poses with each edit. But when editing with respect to a reference, they may not be able to precisely resemble the target pose by only satisfying the pose priors. Based on the above motivations, we designed a system called iPose. Our primary goal is to support easy editing of 3D poses, given a video frame as reference. The input to our system includes a video frame and the initial 3D pose estimated by computer vision approach. A user corrects the errors in the initial 3D pose via 2D operations on top of the video frame. Although human perception provides an advantage in correcting the pose, humans' manual operations have limited precision and efficiency. Our system compensates these limitations by utilizing the video subject's control to refine the user specification to achieve a better precision, and also propagates the user intervention to future frames for better editing efficiency. To formulate our system, we first analyze the general computer vision approaches to see how to introduce human intervention into the pipeline. Here, we illustrate a common automatic model fitting approach. The pipeline adopts a 3D body model, which is parameterized by 10-dimensional shape parameters and 72-dimensional joint rotations. 3D joint positions like these green dots can be regressed from the mesh vertices. A model fitting process projects the 3D joint positions and minimizes their distances with the 2D landmarks in the video frame. This is done iteratively to converge into this reconstructed 3D pose. From this process, we have identified 3 factors that affect the alignment between the 3D pose and the video subject's contour. They are the parameters of the camera for the projection, the shape parameters, and the pose parameters. In the following, I will briefly introduce our interface to control them. The automatic approaches often adopt a weak perspective camera for the projection. It is parameterized by scale and translation. We propose to use a bounding box for manipulating camera parameters. A user can drag and scale the bounding box to globally align the projection with the video subject. Shape parameters are coefficients of blend shapes obtained by PCA. We follow the model definition but retain only 5 dimensions with visual semantics. We provide sliders for manipulating each of the dimensions to feed the human shape better to the figure on the frame. For pose parameters, we confine the editing within the video frame because this is the only visible plane in the 3D space. A user manipulates the projection by dragging the 2D joint handles on top of the video frame, and our system maps the changes in joint handles into 3D space and computes the corresponding changes in joint rotations. This demo shows an example of iPose workflow. A user uses the bounding box to change the camera and sliders for changing the shape. And then joint handles to change 3D poses. Upon the release of joint handles, our system automatically refines the user-specified pose. This pipeline illustrates an example of pose refinement with image controls. After a user edits a body part, say this right arm, it is projected onto the video frame as a point cloud. The 2D point cloud is then used as a prompt to retrieve a segmentation mask from the video frame. Then both the 2D point cloud and the segmentation mask are converted into resampled controls. The transformation for refinement is found by aligning these two controls. Then the transformation on the joints can be used to update the 3D pose in the same way as how user manipulates joint handles. After editing one frame, our system propagates the user specifications to automatically correct a few future frames. The user can further adjust the temporal propagation result. We track the position of joint handles in the future frame for automatic correction. However, the pose arrows are random and do not follow temporal consistency. The point tracking can also create mistakes. We thus formulate the temporal propagation as an optimization to let constraints affect each other's. The objective contains mainly three parts. The first term is similar to a model fitting, which ensures that the projected 3D joints are close to the tracked joint handles. The second and the third terms are temporal smoothness to preserve user-specified pose and camera parameters. To evaluate iPose, we conducted a user study with 8 participants. We used the videos from the 3D-PW dataset, which provide pseudo-ground truth 3D poses computed from IMU data. We provided the initial poses and let the participant correct them with iPose. We adopt the joint position arrows as metrics following the conventions in pose estimation. From the results, iPose achieved a significant improvement in pose accuracy as compared with automatic reconstruction approaches. Through the user study, we have observed the scenarios that human perception can address the challenges for automatic approaches. For example, when the subject is walking towards the camera, the aperture problem in the leg movement was addressed by the participant's prior knowledge of the walking movement. In the second example, the video subject's left hand is heavily occluded, but this is resolved by the participant's understanding of the action that the subject is pointing at a distant area. Similarly, the extreme lighting condition and the occlusions in the third example are resolved by the understanding of the getting off car action. In the last example, the subject's left leg is distorted due to the camera perspective. In this case, the participant edited based on his understanding of the pose by referring to the 3D viewer instead of strictly aligning the projection to the video frame. We also analyzed the frames with large arrows after corrections to identify source of remaining arrows. Human perception can also fail for poses with weak semantics, such as the depth ambiguity for the sitting pose in A and the occluded right hand in B. In these two cases, multiple poses will be reasonable to human perception. iPose also fails at camera orientations, where aligning the projection to video frame causes a false global pose orientation. Finally, there are also artifacts in pseudo-ground truth, and in these cases, the poses from iPose are actually more physically plausible than the ground truth. We conducted expert interviews to evaluate the usefulness of iPose. We invited an expert in rehabilitation and another in sports performance analysis to use iPose and suggest comments. Both experts confirmed the potential of iPose in assisting their practice. E2 suggests that iPose will be especially useful for either complete novice or professional elite, but non-professional athletes have less requirement on pose accuracy. E1 suggests that when used for rehabilitation, it would be better to support the correction of key poses at specific events. Please refer to our paper for more details of methods and more results. Thank you for watching.